Welcome to Everything Creepy. Turn off the lights, cuddle up tight, and enjoy the story. I've been a ranger at Echo Lake National Park for nearly 15 years. During those years, I'd grown accustomed to the rhythms of the wilderness, the patterns of the wildlife, and the calm predictability. Echo Lake was a mirror-like expanse nestled deep within the sprawling pines and shadowed peaks, tranquil and inviting by day, though at night its dark waters took on an unsettling, inscrutable quality. For as long as I'd worked there, Echo Lake had a quiet reputation. Fishermen spoke of the lake being strangely devoid of fish despite the clear, pristine water. Campers whispered uneasily around their fires about an uncomfortable stillness that descended upon the lake after sunset, as if the world itself held its breath in apprehension. These were merely the exaggerated ramblings of bored visitors, I reasoned, until the disappearances started. The first one was subtle, easy to dismiss as an accident. A tourist named Stephen Ramsey vanished quietly after going for an evening swim. Rescue teams scoured every inch of the shoreline and the dense forests surrounding it, but after 2 weeks, they gave up. It seemed inexplicable. Echo Lake wasn't particularly deep or dangerous, yet no trace of Stephen ever surfaced. Authorities chalked it up to tragic misfortune and moved on. But I couldn't. A nagging sensation, like a pebble lodged inside my shoe, persisted. The memory of Stephen's wife sobbing as she held their small child haunted me. Determined to put my mind at ease, I started spending my evenings patrolling the lakeshore. At first, I noticed nothing unusual. The lake remained tranquil, reflecting the setting sun and shades of burnt orange and crimson. But soon enough, more visitors disappeared, 2 college students, then a young woman hiking alone. With each disappearance, panic and dread deepened among visitors. Our usually busy campsites became deserted, a haunting quiet now dominating the park. Local authorities increased patrols but found nothing. No bodies, no clothing, not even footprints. Echo Lake offered no answers, only a silent, reflective stare. Frustrated, I committed myself to solving the mystery personally. I began conducting late-night stakeouts from a hidden vantage point near the shoreline, observing with binoculars and notebooks. Each night was the same. Absolute silence enveloped the area. No wildlife stirred, and no sounds penetrated the stillness. Then, one particularly clear autumn evening, as stars flickered to life in the darkening sky, I noticed movement in the water. Through my binoculars, a subtle ripple disturbed the mirror surface. My heart quickened with cautious excitement. Finally, something. I watched breathlessly as the ripples expanded, gently at first, then more aggressively. Something moved beneath the water, something immense, fluid, and dark. The sight rooted me to the spot, my stomach tightening with unease. This was no ordinary wildlife. The sheer scale seemed impossible, unnatural. As suddenly as it began, the lake calmed again. I waited hours more, straining my eyes against the darkness, but nothing else emerged. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, dread settled deep into my bones. The following night, I returned prepared, flashlight and camera in hand. The lake appeared even darker than usual, shadows pooling thickly at its edges. As midnight approached, the sensation of being watched became overwhelming. The hairs on my neck stood sharply on end, goosebumps prickling across my skin despite the mild temperature. Once again, the water stirred. This time, however, the movement was unmistakably intentional. Something massive glided slowly beneath the surface, creating a vast, undulating shadow. My heart pounded wildly as I fumbled with my camera, trying desperately to capture evidence of what I was witnessing. But every photograph revealed only blurred reflections and shadows, nothing concrete. Night after night, I continued my silent vigils, consumed by my need for answers. My colleagues noticed my growing obsession and exhaustion, but I brushed off their concerns. The disappearances haunted me relentlessly, compelling me forward. Then, one frigid evening in early November, my persistence paid off horribly. Moonlight bathed the lake in silvery light, illuminating it starkly. I stood shivering by my observation point when I saw it clearly for the first time. A massive shape reached silently from the depths, a colossal, serpentine form coated in dark, reflective scales. My breath froze, terror locking my muscles rigid. Its eyes met mine across the distance, a silent challenge hanging between us. Recognition filled me. This thing was ancient, a creature beyond human understanding, long hidden beneath Echo Lake's serene facade. It submerged slowly, silently, leaving me trembling uncontrollably. In that horrifying moment, understanding struck me with brutal clarity. Echo Lake was not just a lake. It was a hidden sanctuary for something prehistoric and cunningly predatory. As days passed, my sanity began slipping away under the weight of the knowledge. Sleep became impossible, visions of the creature invading every dream, every waking thought. Desperation drove me to historical archives, uncovering forgotten accounts. Ancient indigenous stories of a being dwelling beneath the lake, worshipped and feared, sacrifices left to appease its hunger. Echo Lake had always been a forbidden place, its tranquility carefully maintained by respectful distance. Modern ignorance had violated that ancient covenant, and now visitors paid the price. Determined to expose the truth, I returned once more, camera in hand, prepared to risk everything for undeniable proof. I paddled silently into the lake's center, pulse hammering in fearful anticipation. As if sensing my intent, the water around me began to churn violently. Panic seized me as I realized my foolish mistake. I'd willingly entered its domain. From beneath, a shadow surged upward, impossibly fast. The creature erupted from the water mere yards away, towering monstrously, its enormous jaws agape, filled with razor-sharp teeth gleaming under moonlight. Its cold eyes locked onto mine, devoid of mercy or hesitation. Instinctively, I dropped my camera and dove overboard, swimming frantically toward shore. Adrenaline surged through my veins, numbing exhaustion, fear propelling each desperate stroke. Behind me, the creature hissed angrily, its massive form thrashing violently, threatening to drown me. Gasping, I clawed ashore, collapsing onto the muddy banks. Glancing back, I watched in terror as the creature slowly retreated beneath the surface, its malevolent eyes never leaving mine until submerged completely. Exhausted and shattered, I lay trembling, awareness dawning horribly. Echo Lake could never be safe again. I survived only by luck, perhaps spared intentionally, a living warning to others. Authorities dismissed my account, labeling me traumatized and delusional. Yet I resigned immediately, fleeing the lake's proximity entirely. To this day, Echo Lake remains eerily deserted, the disappearances attributed vaguely to accidents and misfortune. But I know the truth. Beneath those calm, reflective waters lurks a creature older than history itself, patiently waiting, eternally hungry, hidden beneath Echo Lake's deceptive beauty. And someday, inevitably, it will emerge once again. You want the truth? The real dirt and blood truth? Not the kind you get on brochures or YouTube channels with shiny drone footage of pine-covered ridges and misty lakes. I've been a ranger in the Northern Cascades for 31 years. I've buried colleagues. I've zippered up bags with things inside them that didn't look entirely human anymore. And I've seen shit that'll claw at the inside of your skull for the rest of your life if you stare too long. So I made rules. Not the kind they print in the guidebooks. These are the rules I live by, not because I'm superstitious, but because I've broken some of them and lived to regret it. I'm not saying these rules will save you, but if you're out here long enough, alone enough, far enough from cell towers and city lights, something will notice you. And if you make the wrong move, it might just decide you don't get to leave. So pay attention. Rule 1. If you hear whistling after dark, don't whistle back. It doesn't matter how human it sounds. It doesn't matter if it mimics a tune you know. Don't respond. We lost a volunteer named Sean back in 2003. Sweet kid, worked summers while he studied forestry. One night he went to secure a fire road gate near Miller's Hollow. Said he heard someone whistling "Pop Goes the Weasel." He whistled back. We found his truck still idling the next morning. Doors open. No Sean, but there were footprints leading into the woods. Big ones, four-toed, barefoot. We followed them for over 5 miles. Then they just stopped. Like whatever made them had taken off into the air. We never found Sean. That night, something whistled the same tune outside my cabin. I didn't answer. Rule 2. If a trail disappears that was there yesterday, don't try to find it. Some parts of the forest shift. You won't read about this in scientific papers. Cartographers pretend it's a data error. But I've watched with my own eyes as whole trails vanish overnight. There was a ridge route east of Decker's Bluff that I used for years. One day it was just gone. No overgrowth, no signs. Like it had never been cut. A group of hikers tried to bushwhack where they thought it should be. Only one came back. She was barefoot, shaking, clothes torn to hell. All she said before she stopped speaking entirely was, "The trees moved." Rule 3. Never follow voices at night. Doesn't matter if they sound like a crying child, your buddy, or your own damn mother. If a voice is calling from the woods, you keep walking. Most things that hunt out here have learned one simple truth. If it sounds human, we'll go running. Especially if it's a kid. Don't they mimic? And once you're off trail, you're in their world. You won't find your way back. And if you do, you won't come back whole. Rule 4. Avoid the north slope between 3 and 4 a.m. I can't explain this one. It's just wrong. Electronics die. Compasses spin. Radios pick up whispers. One of our drone pilots flew over it once at 3:17 a.m. The feed went black for exactly 43 seconds. When it came back, the drone was 400 feet higher and facing the opposite direction. The onboard GPS registered the unit as being in Arizona. We don't fly there anymore. Rule 5. Don't acknowledge the man in the tan hat. He'll show up on the edge of your firelight, just standing. You'll want to ask if he's lost. If he needs help. Don't speak to him. Don't wave. Don't even look too long. Just keep your fire fed and your eyes on your own boots. He doesn't like being seen. And if he realizes you can see him, he'll follow you back. We had a seasonal worker who saw him 3 nights in a row. She quit on the 4th, moved back to Detroit. Took up a job as a mail sorter just so she'd never have to walk in woods again. Rule 6. Don't camp near the lake on a windless night. If the trees aren't moving, but the water ripples, get away. The locals say something ancient sleeps there, something that wakes only when the wind dies. I don't know what it is, but I've seen the mist rise up in perfect rings, like something's breathing beneath the surface. One camper ignored the signs, left his tent too close. The next morning, all we found was the tent, unzipped from the inside, and a trail of water leading deep into the brush. Rule 7. Trust the dogs, always. We use trained search and rescue dogs. Smart, loyal, experienced. If a dog refuses to go down a path or starts whining at a seemingly empty clearing, turn around, now. They see things we don't, sense things we can't. I had a black lab named Ruckus, brave as hell. He once dragged me away from a ravine I hadn't seen in the dark. Saved my damn life. One night he froze mid-step, staring into the dark. Hackles raised. Wouldn't budge. That was the night the trees started whispering. Rule 8. If you wake up with pine needles in your mouth, leave the woods immediately. Doesn't matter if you camped on a clean tarp or in a raised tent. If you wake up and taste bark, get out. Something marked you. I've seen people ignore this rule. They get slow, confused, like the forest starts rearranging itself in their minds. Eventually they wander off trail, walk in circles, forget their names. They always walk north. We don't follow them anymore. Rule 9. Don't look at the moon through the trees on the equinox. I know how that sounds, but there's something about the way the light filters down like it splinters. Like it reflects something it shouldn't. I had a rookie do it once, swore the moon blinked at him. Next day, he wouldn't stop sketching circles with eyes in the center. Hundreds of them, all over the ranger station, he transferred. Or maybe he didn't. His paperwork disappeared. Like he was never on the schedule. Rule 10. Don't break the circle. If you ever find yourself inside a ring of stones, twigs, mushrooms, anything that looks like it was arranged with intention, don't disturb it. Don't step over it. Don't mock it. And for the love of God, don't break it. There are things older than memory that walk these woods. Things that remember when humans still huddled in caves. That circle isn't there for you. It's there to keep something else in. You don't want to find out what happens when it's free. I know how this all sounds. Like the ramblings of an old man gone too long in the trees. Maybe that's what I am. But I'm still here. Others aren't. You don't have to believe any of it. Most folks don't. But next time you find yourself out in the deep woods, miles from any road, your phone battery dying, night settling in like a shroud, and you hear a whistle that sounds just a little too close, just a little too perfect, you'll remember this, and maybe then you'll follow the rules. My name is Ryan Mitchell, and I volunteered with the Red Ridge Mountain Search and Rescue Team for almost a decade. I've seen plenty in those years. Lost hikers, frightened families, injuries, and sadly, even fatalities. But nothing in my experience prepared me for the disappearance of Adam Holloway. It was mid-September when the call first came in. The leaves had begun to turn, fiery oranges and yellows blanketing Red Ridge Mountain in breathtaking display. Days were still warm, but the evenings had grown cold, carrying whispers of the harsh winter ahead. Adam, an experienced hiker and nature photographer from out of state, had set out alone 3 days prior to capture the beauty of the changing season. When he failed to check in with his wife as promised, the alarm was raised. The briefing was straightforward. Adam Holloway was last seen entering the forest at 8:15 a.m. 3 days ago. He wore sturdy hiking boots, carried ample supplies, and had a full camera setup. Weather conditions had been ideal. Nothing indicated he should have faced significant difficulties. Our dogs, trained bloodhounds skilled at tracking scents days old, were restless, whining, and tugging eagerly at their leads. Confidence was high. Finding hikers after just a few days usually ended well. We entered the forest with practiced precision, splitting into pairs and covering wide search zones methodically. My partner, Sarah, a seasoned volunteer herself, walked alongside me, calling Adam's name at regular intervals, our voices echoing through the dense woodland. The dogs sniffed diligently, their noses pressed close to the forest floor, moving methodically back and forth. Hours passed with no sign of Adam. Concern grew steadily within me, though outwardly we remained composed and professional. By late afternoon, frustration began to edge out optimism. Then a call crackled over our radios. Team 3 had discovered something unusual. Sarah and I hurried over, pulse quickening. When we arrived, we saw Dave, another volunteer, standing near a clearing, face pale and drawn. On the ground lay Adam's expensive camera, carefully placed atop a smooth, flat stone, undamaged, lens neatly capped. Beside it, arranged carefully in an almost ritualistic pattern, lay several leaves, each perfectly symmetrical, identical in shape and size. My stomach twisted uneasily. Something was deeply wrong. The dogs sniffed cautiously, suddenly reluctant, tails tucked between their legs. Normally eager, they now refused to follow any scent, whining nervously. Determined, we expanded our search radius, shouting louder, desperation creeping into our voices. Yet hours later, we remained empty-handed. Darkness soon forced us to halt temporarily, our hearts heavy with frustration and worry. Nightfall on Red Ridge Mountain is never peaceful. The forest transforms as darkness falls. Shadows stretch ominously, noises become unsettling. Wildlife rustles quietly through the undergrowth. Our campsite was tense, volunteers sharing quiet theories, none reassuring. Sleep was scarce and uneasy. Dreams plagued me. Adam's camera lying atop that stone, leaves circling slowly, whispering softly in voices that felt ancient and knowing. Each awakening found me drenched in sweat, heart pounding. By sunrise, anxiety hung thickly over our camp. We resumed immediately, widening our grid, covering increasingly difficult terrain. Late morning brought another chilling discovery. Adam's hiking boots, arranged neatly at the base of a towering oak, laces perfectly tied, soles pristine, no mud, no dirt, no scuffs. It was impossible. Now deeply unsettled, we radioed base camp, updating them. No footprints led to or from the boots. The dogs again refused to approach. Sarah glanced nervously around, gripping her radio tightly, her expression mirroring my own unease. As daylight waned, strange feelings intensified. The forest seemed watchful, heavy, oppressive, as if silently mocking our confusion and distress. Volunteers spoke less, movements becoming tense, hurried. The sense of urgency was palpable. On the fourth day, still no closer to answers, dread settled heavily within us. That afternoon, my radio crackled suddenly. Sarah, searching alone nearby, sounded frightened. "Ryan, come quickly." Her voice trembled. "There's something here you need to see." I sprinted toward her coordinates, pulse racing. Sarah stood frozen near a shallow stream, pointing wordlessly. On a rock, dripping wet yet strangely pristine, sat Adam's journal. Hands shaking, I opened it. The final entry was dated just hours after Adam entered the forest. Something watches from the trees, not animal, not human. Leaves whisper, shadows follow, cannot leave trail, afraid. Cold dread filled my chest. Sarah stared wide-eyed, breath shallow. That night at camp, we discussed aborting the search. Volunteers were visibly shaken. Rational explanations no longer held comfort. Sleep became impossible as the night filled with unfamiliar sounds. Low whispers rustling through the trees, a quiet mocking laughter carried gently by the wind. Exhausted and terrified, I finally drifted into restless sleep, only to awaken suddenly. The campsite was silent, unnaturally so. No wildlife stirred, no leaves rustled. Something watched from the darkness beyond the firelight, unseen but felt intensely. Heart pounding, I slowly turned, gaze sweeping nervously. Two glowing eyes stared back, perfectly still, unblinking, inhuman. Panic surged violently. I scrambled upright, gripping my flashlight tightly, but the eyes vanished instantly, leaving only impenetrable darkness. Shouts erupted from tents around me, other volunteers having similar experiences. We clustered closely together, terrified and confused. By dawn, the decision was unanimous. We had to abandon the search. Yet, as we packed hastily, another discovery chilled me deeply. My own hiking boots, removed silently during sleep, now arranged neatly beside my tent entrance, laces perfectly tied, sawless and possibly clean. A horrifying realization gripped me. Whatever took Adam now hunted us, methodically and deliberately. Desperately fleeing the forest, our retreat was panicked and chaotic. Shadows danced mockingly among trees, laughter echoing softly, leaves rustling menacingly. We emerged eventually, shaken and changed forever. Adam Holloway was never found. Officially, authorities labeled his disappearance unexplained, eventually forgotten by most. But not by me. Years passed, yet nightmares persist. Glowing eyes staring silently, leaves whispering dark secrets. I no longer volunteer. Wilderness terrifies me now, its ancient darkness having marked me permanently. Sometimes, late at night, I awake abruptly, pulse racing, certain that something watches silently from shadows, patient and unyielding. And on rare occasions, stepping outside nervously, I discover small leaves, perfectly symmetrical, arranged carefully at my doorstep, a silent, chilling reminder that Red Ridge Mountain never forgets. And whatever resides there waits patiently, eternally watchful, leaving no trace behind. I'd always preferred solitude. That's probably why I jumped at the chance to work the remote Ranger Station 7. Perched deep in the Alaskan wilderness, surrounded by mountains capped with eternal snow, dense forests, and endless silence, it was exactly where I felt at peace. But solitude has a strange way of magnifying everything, making the harmless unnerving and the unusual outright terrifying. It was late autumn when the radio crackled to life for the first time, cutting sharply through the midnight quiet. I'd been dozing, feet up on my desk, the station illuminated dimly by the yellowed glow of an old desk lamp. Station 9 calling Station 7, please respond. I sat bolt upright, adrenaline snapping me awake. Station 9. My heart skipped. Everyone knew Station 9 was abandoned. A relic shuttered nearly 30 years ago after a mysterious incident that left 2 rangers missing and 1 dead. Officially, it was closed due to budget cuts and structural issues, but unofficial whispers told darker stories. My fingers trembled as I picked up the mic. Station 9, this is Station 7. Identify yourself immediately. A hiss of static, then silence. Minutes crawled by, each second stretching painfully. I began to doubt what I'd heard. Maybe fatigue had tricked me. Just as I relaxed my grip, the radio exploded with noise again, frantic now, filled with unmistakable desperation. They're here. They're coming. Please, God, help us. Who is this? I shouted, heart pounding. Only static answered, an eerie, mocking silence. Despite every protocol drilled into me during training, never investigate unknown calls alone, never leave your station at night, my instincts screamed otherwise. A ranger never abandoned someone in distress. Rationalizing that it might be a lost hiker or hunter somehow using old equipment, I geared up quickly, grabbing my flashlight, my gun, and my courage. Outside, cold air bit sharply at my skin. The forest loomed vast and intimidating beneath a swollen, pale moon. Trees whispered darkly as I trudged along the rarely used trail toward Station 9, situated some 3 miles deeper into the wilderness. The silence became heavy, oppressive. Each crunch of my boots in the fresh snow felt too loud, intrusive even. Shadows danced at the edge of my flashlight's beam, darting and shifting. The feeling of eyes on my back made me glance repeatedly behind, but nothing greeted my paranoia except empty, moonlit forest. By the time Station 9 emerged from the darkness, my pulse hammered relentlessly in my ears. The structure was a ghost of its former self. Walls rotted, windows shattered, the roof sagging beneath years of neglect. It sat like a corpse forgotten by time. Swallowing hard, I stepped inside. The smell of mold and decay greeted me harshly, but beneath it lay something else, something metallic and pungent, blood. Shining my light around, I saw dark stains smeared across splintered floorboards, dried trails leading ominously into shadowed corners. The radio room door hung loosely from its hinges, creaking gently in an invisible breeze. Inside, the old equipment blinked impossibly to life, crackling softly. I approached slowly, heart hammering, dread twisting my stomach into knots. Leaning closer, I saw the mic smeared with fresh blood, dripping slowly onto the dusty console. My hand trembled as I reached for it. Then behind me, a whisper, a soft, breathy voice tinged with agony. "Help me." Spinning around, flashlight blazing, my heart froze. A figure crouched in the shadows, hunched and broken. Pale eyes glowed weakly, face streaked with gore. "Who are you?" I stammered, voice shaking. "Trapped here," the figure rasped, shuffling closer, bones cracking unnaturally with each jerky movement. "So long?" It lunged suddenly. I stumbled backward, flashlight clattering away. In darkness, panic surged as I scrambled blindly, feeling decayed hands grip my ankle, pulling me viciously. I kicked free, staggering upright, rushing blindly for the exit, gasping lungfuls of icy air as I escaped into the forest. The trees blurred past, panic propelling me through the darkness, whispers and shuffling footsteps chasing close behind. Bursting back into Station 7, I slammed the door, bolting it firmly. Shaking, sweating despite the cold, I collapsed into a chair, mind spinning wildly. Then the radio crackled again. My blood froze. "Station 7, it said quietly, calmly now, almost mocking. "This is Station 9. Thank you for visiting. Now it's your turn. You're next." Frantic, I tried to call headquarters, but static was my only response. Hours passed in tense silence until sunrise finally bathed the landscape, chasing away the horrors of the night. Exhausted and shaken, I decided to abandon my post immediately, consequences be damned. But as I opened the station door, my breath caught painfully. The trail outside had vanished, swallowed by dense, impenetrable forest. Trees stood impossibly close, as if they'd moved overnight, creating a wall around the station. The radio crackled faintly behind me, whispering mockingly. Despair settled over me. I was trapped, doomed to become yet another cautionary tale, another whisper shared among rangers about Station 9. And then, somewhere deep within the surrounding trees, something laughed softly, coldly, delightedly, welcoming me to my new eternal home. For 10 years, I'd walked these woods as a ranger, familiar with every winding path, every hidden ravine and secret grove. I thought I knew these forests better than anyone, but nothing in all my years prepared me for the staircases. It started subtly, like most things do in the wilderness, rumors shared around dim campfires late at night. Fellow rangers spoke quietly, almost reverently, of strange staircases found deep within the heart of the forest. Staircases without purpose, standing perfectly intact amid the ancient trees, leading nowhere. I dismissed the stories as superstitious nonsense, urban legends invented to spook the new recruits. That was until I found one myself. I was out alone on an extended patrol, mapping an old section of the woods neglected for decades, when I stumbled across it. The staircase stood stark against the green and brown tapestry of the forest. White marble steps glistening softly beneath moss and creeping ivy. No foundation, no surrounding ruins. Just stairs, ascending 20 steps high and ending abruptly midair. The air around the staircase felt strange, charged somehow, tingling faintly against my skin. Approaching cautiously, I circled the structure several times, confusion growing into curiosity. Who had built this? Why was it here, miles from any civilization and completely isolated? Despite the eerie quiet that settled over the clearing, I decided to climb it. My foot touched the first step and a subtle tremor passed through me. The forest, always filled with ambient noise, now held its breath. Another step, another chill. Higher I climbed, my pulse quickening inexplicably with every stride upward. By the 10th step, dizziness overtook me, but stubbornness drove me further. Upon reaching the top step, I found myself gazing into empty air. Trees stretched endlessly before me, the forest canopy dense and darkening as daylight began to fade. Just as confusion overtook my initial awe, a sudden pressure exploded in my head. I collapsed onto the marble surface, gasping. When I awoke, night had fallen, thick and impenetrable. Panic rose in my chest. Hours had disappeared in an instant. My watch confirmed my suspicion. Nearly 6 hours lost. Gathering myself hurriedly, I descended the stairs, my legs shaking. The journey back to my cabin was one of sheer terror. Shadows moved at the edge of my vision. Whispers floated through the trees, hissing, unintelligible murmurs. Every snapping twig, every rustle in the bushes, and a surge of adrenaline coursing through my veins. That night, locked inside my remote ranger cabin, sleep eluded me. I paced restlessly, haunted by the staircase. Around midnight, something brushed against the cabin wall. I froze, straining to hear. A scratching sound followed. Soft, insistent, moving slowly along the outer wall. Grabbing my flashlight, I peered cautiously through the window. Darkness stared back, empty and still. As my heart slowed, relief momentarily overtook fear, until a shape moved just beyond the tree line, large and indistinct. Its eyes reflected briefly in the flashlight's beam, cold and predatory, before vanishing again. Days passed and I became obsessed, desperate for answers. Each night the presence returned, circling closer, scratching louder. I saw glimpses of the creature now clearly stalking me. Tall, lean, unnatural in movement, shifting fluidly between shadow and moonlight. Research revealed disturbing accounts. Ancient lore spoke of stairways appearing in sacred, forbidden places, portals to other worlds, drawing dark entities into our own when disturbed. The staircases were warnings, barriers erected by forgotten people to trap these things between realms. My curiosity had opened a gateway, and the creature stalking me was a being not meant for our world. Determined to undo my mistake, I ventured back into the forest days later. The staircase awaited silently, bathed in oppressive sunlight, its pristine steps untouched by decay or weather. Shaking, I ascended once more, hoping to close whatever door I'd opened. At the summit, I stood trembling, whispering desperate apologies to the empty air. But silence was my only answer. Returning home defeated, I knew instantly I wasn't alone. The cabin door swung loosely, splintered and broken. Inside, furniture lay overturned, deep gouges carved into the wooden walls. Claw marks impossibly large. I backed out slowly, my breath shallow, pulse deafening in my ears. Movement flickered behind me, and before I could turn, something powerful struck me from behind, hurling me to the ground. Dazed, I rolled over to face it. The creature loomed above me, its form shifting, shadowy yet horribly solid. Elongated limbs ended in sharp, cruel claws. Its face, barely discernible, was nothing but dark hollows and gleaming eyes. It leaned down close, its breath icy and foul, whispering softly in a language long forgotten. "You freed me," it hissed, voice reverberating painfully within my skull. "And now you will pay." With a burst of desperate strength, I scrambled away, stumbling toward the forest. Behind me, a haunting, hollow laugh echoed through the trees, following me deeper into the darkness. I never returned to that cabin. I abandoned my post, fleeing to the safety of distant cities filled with artificial lights and noise, far from ancient stairways and silent predators. But the memory never fades. Sometimes, late at night, when the city falls silent and sleep claims me briefly, I still see it. The staircase rising silently, endlessly into nothing. And behind it, waiting patiently in darkness, those cold, glowing eyes. People love the outdoors, the quiet, the escape, the illusion of control. They think if they pack a compass, a whistle, maybe a satellite phone, they're untouchable. That nature will respect them for being prepared. But nature doesn't give a damn. I've worked as a ranger in the Rockies for 12 years now, mostly search and rescue. I've spent more nights than I can count rappelling into gorges, combing frozen riverbanks, shouting into wind that doesn't carry sound like it should. And I've helped recover bodies, or parts of bodies that don't make sense. Ones that make even the seasoned SAR guys look away. They call them the 411 cases. You've probably heard the term. Missing 411, people disappearing in national parks under strange circumstances. Clothes found folded miles away from where they vanished. Kids found alive days later with no memory of how they survived. Bodies turning up in places that had already been searched 10 times. They say it's just bad luck, exposure, wildlife, human error, but they're lying. I've seen it firsthand, and I'm going to tell you about 3 cases, ones I worked personally. After that, I'll tell you what I think is really going on. Case 1, a hiker who walked upward. Her name was Elise, 32. Solo hiker, experienced, smart. She left her itinerary, registered with the ranger station, did everything right. We found her car at the base of Granite Ridge Trail. She was supposed to do a 3-day loop. Weather was fine. No sign of foul play. She never came back. After the 3rd day, we launched a search. Dogs, helicopters, volunteers, nothing. Until day 5, we found her boot. Just one, lodged 60 feet up in a pine tree. The tree had no broken branches, no signs of a climb. Just her boot dangling like some kind of sick ornament. The tracker on our team, old guy named Harris, said her trail ended in the middle of a clearing. No blood, no struggle. Just a sharp dead stop. He said it was like she was lifted off the ground. 2 days later, a pilot doing a grid search spotted something on a sheer cliff face nearly 700 feet above the valley floor. It was a jacket. Elise's. Pinned to a jagged rock. No way a human could have reached it. We had to call in a technical climbing team to retrieve it. Inside the pocket was a note. It said, "It's watching, that's all." We never found Elise. Case 2. The boy who didn't remember. His name was Jacob, 8 years old. Camping with his parents in a marked, populated campground. They looked away for a second and he was gone. We launched a full-scale search within the hour. Found his footprints, tiny, clear, leading straight into the woods. No signs of running, just walking. And then they stopped, mid-stride, in the middle of a flat patch of pine needles, like the kid had just vanished. We searched for 3 days. On the 4th day, he walked out of the woods 6 miles north, barefoot, clean, not a scratch on him. Dehydrated, yes, but otherwise completely fine. He didn't remember where he'd been. Said he was with the other boy for a while, but that the other boy wasn't really a boy. He described a tall figure with a blurry face who spoke without moving its mouth. Said it lived under the mountain and had hollow hands. I sat with him while the medics checked him out. I asked what he meant by hollow. He held up his hands, palms out, and said, like it's missing the parts inside. I still don't know what the hell that means. But that night, I woke up to tapping on my cabin window. When I looked, there were handprints on the glass. Not full palms, just the outer rims, as if something was pressing against the glass with empty skin. Case 3. The screaming silence. This one shook me the worst. A couple in their 40s, Josh and Maria, decided to backpack a remote loop called Raven Spine. Hard trail, isolated, beautiful. They had an emergency beacon. We got the ping at 3:42 a.m., just a single word typed into the beacon's emergency. Message function, screaming. We launched the response at first light. Took us 7 hours to get to the location. When we did, we found the campsite intact, tent zipped, food hung, everything orderly, except the fire was out, and there were blood trails. One set of prints, Josh's, led about 300 yards into the woods and ended at a large boulder. No sign of a struggle, no body, just his pack, sitting neatly beside the stone. Maria was another story. We found her at the edge of a shallow creek, curled into a ball, eyes open, mouth agape, still alive, still breathing. But she wouldn't move, wouldn't speak. When she finally started talking, days later, in a hospital bed, she said the screaming hadn't come from Josh. It had come from above them. She said the trees had been inward, like they were listening. She said something big and wrong had dropped down from the canopy. She said it smelled like static, and she said it had no face. We wrote it up as a trauma response, but I was there. I smelled it too. The air in that clearing buzzed. I don't care how insane it sounds, like TV static, but inside your nose, it made my feelings hurt. We never found Josh. So what is it? I don't have a name for it. None of us do. But it's not just one thing. It's more like different faces of the same force, a pattern. A predator or predators that know how to use the forest better than we do. Whatever it isn't new. Native stories go back centuries. Spirits in the trees. Skinwalkers, mimics, shadow men. Some people say it's interdimensional. Others say cryptids, or even government experiments gone rogue. But I think it's the forest itself, or something inside it. Watching, studying, selecting. It knows how to erase a trail, how to mimic a voice, how to drop a boot 60 feet into a tree without disturbing the branches. It knows how to turn a kid around without touching him. And it knows how to make people disappear in the middle of a sentence. I don't work search and rescue anymore. I do paperwork now. I teach wilderness survival to newbies and do talks for tourists about leave no trace. But sometimes when a radio crackles just wrong, or a report crosses my desk about someone going missing from a safe, marked trail with no gear failures, I feel it once more. That buzzing in my bones, that weight in the air. I sleep with the lights on, and if I ever go missing, don't look for me. Just tell my story, and never follow the whistling. I had always loved my job as a forest ranger. Something about the stillness of the woods, the whispering pines, and the quiet isolation had always spoken to me. But my appreciation changed forever after the night I stumbled upon the silent clearing. It was late autumn, and the leaves had turned into fiery oranges, reds and yellows, carpeting the forest floor with a vibrant, rustling tapestry. My patrol route that evening was simple. Check trails, note any wildlife activity, and ensure campsites were secure and clean. A peaceful routine, one I'd carried out countless times. But on that evening, just as twilight began to seep through the trees, casting elongated shadows, I noticed something strange. The usual hum of insects, rustle of birds, and occasional distant calls of wildlife had faded. The deeper I went into this unfamiliar stretch of the woods, the heavier the silence became, pressing against my ears like cotton. Soon, the trees began to thin out, revealing a circular clearing ahead. Something about the shape seemed oddly symmetrical, almost intentionally formed. As I stepped into it, I immediately felt unsettled. The grass was perfectly short and lush, as if meticulously tended by an unseen caretaker. The circle itself was about 50 feet across, bordered by tall, straight trees whose branches intertwined, forming a near-perfect canopy. Stepping closer to the center, the stillness intensified. The air felt colder, heavier, oppressive even. As darkness began to deepen, a thick mist crept silently into the clearing, swirling slowly around my ankles, then rising like ghostly tendrils into the air. I felt an inexplicable urge to leave, but curiosity held me rooted to the spot. That's when I heard it, a soft, indistinct whispering carried gently by the wind. I spun around, straining my eyes and ears for any source of the sound. There was nothing but trees, fog, and deepening darkness. The whispers grew steadily louder, incoherent words mingling in a haunting chorus. "Hello." My voice cracked slightly. Silence. The whispers abruptly ceased. The sudden quiet was deafening. Deciding it was just my imagination running wild, I quickly turned to leave. But as I stepped toward the forest edge, a flicker of movement caught my eye. Between the trees stood a figure, tall and thin, barely distinguishable from the shadows around it. "Who's there?" I demanded, my heart hammering. The figure didn't move, yet somehow felt closer now, though I couldn't recall seeing it advance. Shivers prickled across my skin as instinct screamed at me to flee. As I took another step backward, more shapes appeared between the trees, silhouettes that seemed to fade and shift, their outlines blurred and wavering as though made of smoke. Panic surged through me, and I stumbled, nearly falling into the mist-covered ground. I turned and ran, pushing blindly through the brush and darkness, the whispering voices following close behind. Branches clawed at my face and arms, but adrenaline propelled me forward until I finally broke onto the main trail, gasping for air and collapsing against a tree. For days, I tried to forget that night, but the clearing haunted my thoughts, creeping into my dreams until sleep became impossible. I had to know more. Against my better judgment, I returned to the clearing several days later, this time in daylight. It looked serene, innocent even, yet the unnatural quiet remained. I spent hours there, searching for clues or answers, anything that could explain what I had seen. Then, near the clearing center, partially obscured by grass, I found an ancient stone, smooth and worn, carved with faded symbols unfamiliar to me. I photographed it and left, determined to understand its meaning. Research at the ranger station yielded disturbing folklore from the region's past. Stories spoke of an ancient spirit trapped in the land, kept at bay by ritualistic circles carved into stones. Those circles, the stories said, marked sacred spaces, but also places of warning, locations where the barrier between worlds was thin. Each night afterward, my sleep became more disturbed. Visions plagued me, images of shadowy figures standing silently around my bed, whispering unintelligibly. My colleagues began to notice my deteriorating state, urging me to take leave. I refused, consumed by an obsession to uncover the truth. On my final visit, I arrived at twilight, driven by desperation. Fog already blanketed the clearing, thicker and colder than before. As I stepped toward the stone, a low vibration thrummed beneath my feet. The whispers erupted around me instantly, no longer quiet murmurs, but anguished cries. Figures surrounded me, clearer now, hollow-eyed and ghostly pale, their mouths moving rapidly. "Release us," they begged, voices overlapping in tortured unison. "He comes." From the mist, a deeper darkness emerged, something ancient and malevolent. The shadow stretched upwards, impossibly tall, its eyes glowing faintly with cold, predatory light. Terror paralyzed me, my heart nearly stopping as it approached. The spectral figures recoiled, dissolving into mist as it drew near. "You disturbed my peace," it hissed, the voice resonating painfully inside my mind. The creature's shadowy form expanded, engulfing the clearing and blocking out the last light of the evening sky. In sheer panic, I ran again, pushing past the oppressive darkness. Branches and thorns tore into my flesh, but I didn't slow until I burst into the ranger station, wild-eyed and bleeding. They found nothing in the clearing afterward, dismissing my story as stress-induced delusions. But I knew better. I resigned soon after, abandoning the forests I'd once cherished. I moved far away, but even now, in distant cities and brightly lit apartments, the whispers still find me on nights when the fog rolls in, softly reminding me that something ancient never forgets and never forgives. If this gave you chills, hit subscribe for more stories that blur the line between reality and the impossible. And remember, just because it sounds unbelievable doesn't mean it isn't true.